Hi, good morning and welcome to our session. I'm Carol, here from Sunset Learning Institute. I'm from marketing. I will be here today with Arturo Hamilton to host this Copilot session. A little bit about Arturo. Arturo is a multi-cloud solutions architect and cybersecurity officer, authorized at Azure, AWS, GCP, and Splunk instructor. And also he has plus 18 years in the IT field. Also, since 2016, he has been a cloud and cybersecurity trainer, cloud and cybersecurity evangelist, IT, cybersecurity, and cloud solutions consultant. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Copilot. Thank you, Arturo, for hosting these sessions. And also, I will be here in the chat helping you and the attendees with the questions. Please stay with us until the end, that we have a very good promotion for you all and a gift. So thank you and good class, Arturo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, I see a message there in the chat saying there is no audio. Can you confirm you can hear us, guys? Welcome, everyone, and welcome to the session. As Carol mentioned, my name is Arturo Hamilton. I'll be your host today. And thank you for joining. We're going to talk about Copilot Studio. If you want to scan the QR code you have there, you can reach out and contact me in LinkedIn. I'm there to help any one of you who needs just to chat about AI or whatever technology you have in mind. And that being mentioned, folks, again, thank you for your time today. Thank you. I see a couple of messages there, like we have audio. So thank you for the confirmation. I usually keep the camera off so you can focus on the screen, and then I'll be back at the end. But just for you to know, I'm here with you the whole hour, okay? But what we have today, folks, what's the discussion of the day and what we have ahead of us in the next few minutes? We're going to talk about Copilot Studio, okay? Basically, it's your Copilot, your way, the way you want it, the way you can make it work, and what you can get from it. We have a small agenda here. We're not going to get into that big of a stick to the whole agenda. It's more about you understanding what we are seeing during the next hour. We're going to talk about the future being conversational. We will talk about the actual Copilot Studio. How do you build your own Copilot? And finally, some options to customize. So basically, the next 60 minutes are about you getting to know the platform, okay? Carol is going to launch a couple of questions, a small poll that you'll see popping up on the meeting. So please give us a hand and take your time there. You can see we have two basic questions. I read studio from the title. So first of all, the experience you have with the AI-driven tools and Copilot Studio in the areas that you actually are interested in. So please take couple of minutes here to answer these two questions, folks. We will appreciate it. And while you do that, let me get started with conversational AI and the evolution of AI conversational processes. Since, let's say, January of this year, it has been more than that, but at the beginning of this year, 2024, we start seeing everywhere around information and notifications and conversations and whatever type of media you consume regarding artificial intelligence, right? You may remember that around February, March of this year, a few months ago, Microsoft announced in a pretty huge event about the Copilot stuff they were about to release. So that was 6 months ago, 4 months ago, if you will, if we go exactly to launch date. And yet we have had a lot of evolution in the last 60 to 90 days. We are living the momentum of conversational AI, folks. By 2016, we're talking about more than 80 billion reduction on actual agent labor based on conversational AI. We're not going to discuss about here the moral implications of doing some stuff with AI that human could do. We're talking about the actual momentum we're living in, okay? Today, folks, we're talking about 45% of organizations having a full embracement of conversational AI for customer service, for internal processes, for building units. But in 2 years, we will have up to 80% of the organizations worldwide actually doing something via conversational AI. Okay, so it is important we understand how fast and how big this is happening. Check this graphic. The mobile phones took 16 years, okay, This is being recorded, Ashgar. Don't worry. You'll have access to the recordings at the end, so you can actually check them out. And I'll share a link at the end where you can get a copy of this for free. Okay. So as I was saying, 16 years for the mobile phones to actually get to 100 million users. 7 years for the internet to do the same. 4.5 years for Facebook to achieve that. 90 days for ChatGPT to have over 100 million users. Think about the number. Now, if we actually sit back and start considering these numbers, you will see that we're actually living something that is completely changing history, right? So all this actually drives to the building conversational AI that we have. Challenges we have to face every day: budget, knowledge, maintenance, security, integrations, reutilization, etc. Right? What we want to do at the end of the day is actually get the best of that tool, in this case, a conversational AI, so we can have a proper approach and a proper usage of it for the end users or our customers. The way we start building a few months ago, a year ago, it's completely different to what we have today. We had to go to specialized vendors a year ago and say, hey, I need to have a dynamic artificial intelligence field Q&A agent in my chat. That was a year ago. Today, folks, you can actually build your own stuff for your customers, for your end users. That's the intention of using the conversational AI. Okay, check this out. Check the actual one we have on the top right. It's actually the icon from Copilot, right? It's our Copilot solution, the one we're talking about. We have Gen AI and author content by ourselves. So we are evolving. We're actually focusing on this in-house development and this way we actually prepare for our benefit, talking about as an organization, as a company, as an enterprise. And all this comes from the power of Copilot, okay? Microsoft has given to us, if you want, a full solution based on a Copilot ecosystem that we can use in Microsoft 365 or for end users' experiences, okay? I'll talk about that in a second, Elizabeth. I'll hold that question and we will get to the studio and I'll come back to that one, okay? But thanks for the question. I'm not gonna ignore it. I'll just drive it according to the agenda, but I'll answer back in a couple of minutes. Thanks to you. So as I was mentioning, today, folks, we can do a lot of things with Copilot, right? From creating a basic presentation to actually analyzing a full threat process using Microsoft Defender. We can develop a complete line of code based on a Copilot conversational solution, or we can actually provide an agent for virtual answering to our customers. The Microsoft approach is Copilot for every Microsoft Cloud experience. We have Dynamics, we have Power Platform, we have 365, we have the new security one that got released a few weeks ago, like a month ago. We have the Windows one that it's now fully coming integrated into the operating system, and we have the GitHub. What we need to understand from this, folks, is that the way we, the end users, the customers, your customers, will interact with these tools that you actually have to use will be via conversation, right? The natural language. We, the administrators, we, the professionals building the solution, will have to understand how Copilot works on the back end, the bottom line of this graphic. But what we actually need to understand also is how that relationship between what we created and the user consumption will take place. So we want to have that control to cover those business needs. We want to have that diversity of offerings. Right now, if I told you, hey, you can create a Copilot just for your marketing users to focus on the new projects and campaigns. You can create a Copilot to focus on security and have all the track analysis of potential threats and how to prepare for new threats. You can have a Copilot for the sales department to monitor KPIs in real time from a third-party software like SAP or like CRM. That kind of stuff can be done today, folks. Yes, we know we have Copilot for PowerPoint, we have Copilot for Excel, for Teams, but what if you could create your own, if you could customize and build from scratch? That, my friends, is Copilot Studio, okay? When we talk about Copilot Studio, folks, what we have in mind or what we want to understand from it is that we are in control now. Sorry, this one is not here. So what we can do with Copilot is actually limit by our own capacity, okay? Elizabeth had a question about saying, okay, we had a Power Virtual Agent, right? We were capable of creating a Q&A. We were able to create maybe a conversational bot for customer interactions directly over Teams or directly over an exposed API in a web application. Yes, Copilot Studio today, folks, is about building from scratch with AI tools. We do have new stuff available, okay? We are capable today of building and boosting conversations not only based on Q&As, not only based on question databases or answer databases, we are capable of identifying iterations and interactions from the customers or from whoever is using the Copilot. Copilot Studio will give you, the user administrating and managing, the capacity of selecting a pre-existing Copilot, empower that up with new features, or to create your own Copilot from scratch. You can integrate this with Azure, with ChatGPT, with AI Studios, with Power Platform, with Power Automate, with Azure Bot Frameworks, tools that we have in cloud today that were not compatible with the Power Virtual Agent before, plus the native usage of large language understanding services, okay, or large language models that you may have read about, LLMs. So basically, the main difference we have today with Copilot Studio, folks, and for your question, Elizabeth, is that we have all that Microsoft Graph background supporting what you offer to the end user, okay, that power of artificial intelligence. So when we talk about Copilot, my friends, what we have to remember is that it's about customizing. It's about building your solution, okay? I know we may actually pay for a license and get our conversational Copilot and go and say, hey, how are you, right? And I can go and say, for example, this. I open my Copilot and I go and say, hey, how are you? How are you? What's new today? Right? And we know this is by default there with my license, right? Copilot will actually analyze my prompt and will, hey, I'm looking for news now. I'm going to try to get something. So you can see it's looking through chats and documents and things. You can see the things that were created recently, the things that I did with this user. So this is a basic Copilot feature we all have. The moment you pay for your license, you can do this. But guess what? With Copilot Studio, folks, you can actually have the Microsoft Copilot plus your Copilots, the things you need to be done. At the end of the day, your Copilot or the Microsoft Copilot by default that we just saw there saying hi on the platform are both sitting over the orchestration of artificial intelligence handled by the power of Copilot and GPT tools inside of our Microsoft subscription, plus all the infrastructure and data you have, right? If you have, imagine this, you have a SharePoint or a OneDrive sitting on SharePoint repository with hundreds of terabytes of data about sales, trends, campaigns, and stuff, your Copilot and the standard default Copilot will use the same information for the purposes you have. The accesses, the way they connect, the way they consume is what makes it different, okay? It's what will drive you to actually decide how you want Copilot to behave. You can see here, the summary it gave me, it's from actually June the 25th. That's a little bit old. I mean, it's the last thing that I did with this user. But I know that I'm actually like looking at something that I have permissions with this user. What if I wanted to see the latest emails or the latest meetings we had running on this company platform I have on screen? That's a different thing I have to customize. I have to modify, right? And that's what Copilot Studio is for. When we talk about Copilot and conversational AI, remember what I was saying, we actually have that human interaction. We want to create a seamless experience for whoever consumes to think they are talking to another human, or at least feel like they are interacting with some kind of a human intelligence, right? So with Copilot Studio, we have that option, folks. We can build Copilot for business solutions, for other solutions outside of actual business scenarios, or a complete customized experience. When you customize one Copilot, two Copilots, or multiple Copilots, what you actually achieve using the Copilot Studio, it's that level of personalization for you, your company, and your users. Copilot Studio is all about that. Okay, that's the core of this small workshop we have today, or this small discussion we have today. The idea of using Copilot Studio is to provide that full set of options as an actual scenario of usage for the end user. Imagine this scenario. Picture this. You have a Copilot that is capable of reading specific documents on a specific SharePoint site. What if you want that Copilot to be capable of also comparing that SharePoint repository with a Dynamics table or a Dynamics report? And then go outside of that and use maybe SAP or use a third-party sales tool to actually read in real time the sales, compare with the reports, and print on the front end an actual number to the end user. Since we can use GenAI, Microsoft Copilot, Power Platform, Azure, and our list of tools that we already have like SharePoint, this is possible today. This is something we can achieve at any moment, okay? It is important we remember this, folks. This is like the core of what we're discussing today. And why is that so important? Because we want to build something a little bit different from the out-of-the-box experience. Copilot Studio is that tool. That's the core of this, folks. Let me show you here quite fast. Copilot Studio, okay? It's copilotstudio.microsoft.com. You have to have a license. Right now, if you subscribe to Copilot, that has no free trial, but you can actually extend to a free trial of Copilot Studio once you have an actual license as a Copilot user. Okay, that's an important consideration. In the Copilot Studio, let me just like zoom in so it's not that small. In here, we have all the options we need to actually build from scratch. We have templates, you see. If you don't know where to start, we can actually build based on a template, or we can start from scratch using the create option. When we talk about this, folks, the first thing we do is to build a workspace, okay? Think about this as the environment, the context where you will connect stuff, select the way it will work, define the type of languages you will use, select any GenAI tool that you might want to have, and then publish and release. When we use Copilot Studio, something important before we go back to the platform is that we have to remember that there are a lot of solutions we can actually include for this to work. Take a look at the screen here. You can see some stuff that looks like Microsoft stuff and lots of other things that are not related to Microsoft at all. Apple Message for Business, WeChat, WhatsApp through Twilio, Slack on the right. And as I was mentioning, we can connect Dynamics, we can connect SAP, we can connect Service Desk, we can connect Okta, we can connect anything that might be needed. So these channels can use the new custom copilots. The way we build today, and we'll be back in Copilot Studio in a minute, is changing a lot. This is a traditional approach. Think about Azure. When you build something in Azure, what do? You create a subscription, you start with a tenant, you create a directory, you create the users, permissions, resource groups, computers, network, security, and then you expose the application, you add the code, and then your users can see it and actually use that web app, right? A lot of the process is manually authored. You build each of the questions, each of the possible interactions. So whatever happens is actually achieved and complete as a business process. What happens if a customer asks for a discount? Okay, these will be the answers based on the discount keyword. What if a customer has a complaint? Possible answers for the complaint. That's what you do in a default building scenario. When we use GenAI, like this Copilot Studio solution, what we get is the knowledge sources we have. Think about a chat, think about a web app, think about Teams, Twilio, messages for Apple, stuff like that. Your same natural language training, the human language I've been mentioning, will reduce those topics you manually need to specify. If you go right now to any AI solution, let's say public chat GPT, and you say, hey, I have a complaint, what will happen? How can I help you? What complaint is that about? Did you have to teach how to do that to GPT? No, it's already there on the natural language and the large language model, right? The same happens here. What we do with Copilot is we let the GenAI take care of those possible variations of the interaction while we focus on the actual solution. If there is a complaint, let the chat figured it out. Once we know what the complaint is about, we might trigger a workflow, we might trigger a report, we might trigger a message, or even a compensation program to that customer. That's the objective in here. So we can use this Copilot to answer, to act, or to build from scratch. Okay, so let me show you here. Let me go back to our Copilot. Low-code users can collaborate. When we say low code, we're talking about no need of an advanced language, Elizabeth, okay? We talk about no needing to connect to a Python extension or to connect to an advanced, I don't know, repository solution based on Ruby or based on R, or I don't know, based on Perl. No, what we have here is the option of using basic variables like, hey, how do we call this possible interaction, and refer to it as if it was a standard variable. When we build something in here, what we usually have is that we get rid of that dependency of understanding an advanced language. For example, just taking your question so everyone knows where I'm coming from and where I'm going with this. You can right now create a full training model with all the possible interactions of your company using Python, right? You can grab all the data sources you have on premises, let's say databases, Excel files, folders and stuff, and use Python to learn from it, feed that into a database, a knowledge database in cloud, and then use it to answer. But you'll be the one building the whole language understanding process, right? The whole data source management. When we do this with Copilot, we don't have to go through that intermediate step of using Python, in my example. When we go to low code, means that you need to understand the foundations of how to declare a variable, maybe how to call a variable here, how to define a process like a sequence of actions based on conditions, if and else, stuff like that. That's the reference to low code. There is no actual language you need. That's what we have in here, okay? So if I go here and say, let's start with, I don't know, let's see, website Q&A. It's the most common one we will find, right? It's a template. Check this out. I'm using here, you can see, to answer, Gen answers, right? When I talk about Gen answers, folks, Copilot in 365 will give me, by default, options based on the context I already have for work and the content of my organization, but always based on language understanding. Check this out. So I have here a name, a description, some instructions that the user that consumes this will actually see, and then the primary language. This is pretty important. Right now on the version I have on my screen, it's only English based on the type of trial subscription I use, but you can add advanced options. And check this out. If I already had some public knowledge repositories, I can actually come here and say, hey, give me something from an external website. I would like to add here an external website, and I could go here and say, I don't know, the BBC of London, for example. Let's grab here, BBC UK. I can grab this one and say, okay, whatever you find here that can be actually used and consumed, include it. Okay, and I can keep adding sources for this Copilot to use. As you see, compared to this one that only works with my tenant, with my information, this one we have here actually goes out and says, hey, let's see what happened today in London, right? So I click add. And I can add as many bases or sources as I need, okay? So this is my basic Copilot, okay? I have no interactions yet. I'm gonna go here and say create. It's gonna set up a basic solution. And the next thing I'll have will be the option to actually define how the process will take place. When we talk about this option to build dynamically, it means that whatever the user or the consumer or the customer types down in the chat as a request or an interaction will trigger the way Copilot reacts. Take a look on the right screenshot. You can see, hi, I'm the Contoso bot. How can I help? What's the weather like where I'm flying next Wednesday? Where are you flying from? Miami. Okay, here. So it's always trying to understand what the customer or the interaction wants. So you can see here, it's using Microsoft Service Weather, right? So based on the dynamic question and understanding that it had from that initial prompt, it's actually connecting to an action. I can see what it's doing. Important. I'm talking about here some advanced approach where we, as I said, include multiple scenarios that could take place. How did my Copilot knew that it has to go to the MSN weather, right? Remember, if I go back a couple of slides, remember that we have by default a few APIs available, a few channels connected to Copilot. If I open the whole list of extensions here, you'll see that we have some MSN feedbacks that we can use. So I know it's actually reading from there the weather that I want, right? That's the idea of this. Once we have a generative response, what happens is, hey, this is the topic, this is what they want. Let me show you here. So we have now our scenario, Copilot, and the stuff that it's using, and the possible topics that it has. Hello, let's see this topic, for example, greeting. What happens when someone says, hi? You can see different options. These are given by default by Microsoft. I could add more. I could add like, what's up? How are you? I don't know. What else you say when you say hi the first time, right? Remember that this is using an advanced language understanding service. So you don't have to add them all, okay? I mean, maybe something pretty specific that you know that might not actually be that commonly used in the English language could be an exception, and you will add it manually. But in reality, it doesn't mean that only these are actually going to answer. Okay, so check this out. I have here my option. I have my whole website ready. It's all enabled. Okay, I can actually publish this and start using it. Now, when I start adding actions, folks, and this is what makes it so important, remember that when we want something to happen based on an interaction, we actually start creating these connections. This is the whole magic of the Copilot Studio solution, folks. What can you do based on a topic? Again, I don't want you to leave today's session thinking, oh, I need to consider all the possible outcomes or interactions to have a proper action. No. You can add actions like, let's say, general actions to say, read from this table, read from this calendar, read from this Teams chat group, and whatever interaction refers to them, regardless of you explicitly stating those on the topics, we'll have the option of using these actions, these connectors, okay? I can go here and say, okay, what else do we have? I can go here, create a new one, or I can create one from scratch. You can see here, the forecast is the one we were seeing, right? So this is the one I want to use. I can add this to an action. Since I don't have actions yet, I'm not able to add it, right? But if we do the whole process, I could say, hey, after something happens here, I want you to have a new step. So add something new, add new topics. Let's say here, for example, let's go keep this weather here, and let the users know about weather conditions. Let's say in real time, for example, right? So that's just a basic topic. There is my topic. I could add here a couple of phrases. I could go here and say, hey, you can see automatically it's giving me some options, you see? I was not the one saying, hey, add all this, but I can actually specify more if I want, and then I can add a couple of variables or stuff. This is what I was mentioning, Elizabeth, when I said low code. You can see here, if I define a variable, this is what we need to understand, like how a variable is defined. You can see it's sending this actually to the MSN connection. This is a little bit more advanced, but it's about we knowing how to handle a relationship with another option, okay? So the idea here, folks, is that, hey, I have a trigger, I can add a message. If it fails, what will happen? If it actually works, what will I do? You can see here, what do you want to be print? And then send it over. Okay, so I can go here and say, can you share the weather for the next 3 days? If the action is not stated yet, it's actually going to take a while there to understand what's happening. And you can see it's actually letting me know. I can go to these options and check my scenarios. I can have a real-time forecast, since I don't have an action yet, is answering with whatever tools it has on hand. In this case, the way it will answer without a website, right? Well, it's loading there. Once ready, I'll have the option of consuming. This is a basic one. The next thing I can do is, hey, now give me an actual action here. Add an action. I can go again to the MSN. Here. Whenever it pops up, there it is. You can see current weather, forecast for today, forecast for tomorrow. Let's get today's forecast. This is the one I want, and then connect it. Okay, so the idea here, folks, is that whenever we have a scenario where we need to work with Copilot, folks, what we actually do is we include those specific extra tools that are not built into our Microsoft service. Let me restart the share just in case, Steve. So, there. You should see it again in refreshing. Let me refresh it for all of you because I think it just there. Right? So that's the intention of using Copilot, folks. Okay? We built our action and we have the option ready to be consumed. So you can see location, current weather, and my action is ready. Right? These options, folks, when we built, as you saw, are actually based on tools that Microsoft has, not only created by them or not only offered by Microsoft themselves. These are tools that we usually get from external sources, right? Conversational services, advanced services, specific plugins, anything that comes from the outside can actually be used with Copilot Studio. That's the core of this small webinar, like discuss those capacities outside. Now, when we build Copilots, folks, and that's one of the most important things to remember, what we want is to empower the end users with something that is not built by default, right? Because you may remember, if we use a default Copilot, for example, here, and I go here, let's say to Word, let me open here, Word. There, I create a new blank document, and I want my users to be able to create a small description of something. I can go here and say, hey, here, Copilot, and can you share a brief description of Copilot Studio? This that we have on screen is actually a default Copilot, right? A first-party Copilot, something you, me, and anyone with a license can actually do, can actually use without any advanced configuration. All of you with a proper assigned license can do this. That's the first-party Copilot, sorry. Okay, creative writing, PowerPoint, stuff that we know we have by default provided by Microsoft. The intention of building something advanced, folks, is actually understanding those things that are not there by default. Customizing specific experiences. First-party Microsoft Copilots like this one, you can see now I have something that seems useful. I can say, yes, this is something I want, or create something new. I could go and say, no, this first-party Copilot should actually have new features, new tools today. And I can do that. Extend and customize my Copilot. But again, let's get that difference, okay? Where are we today with our Copilot subscription? Where do you want to be in the future with the new options you have? That will be always the first approach you need to take. When we extend and customize this Copilot, we use the same tools we already had, like the creative writing of Word, plus maybe an external source. If I go back here, folks, and I click here, check this out. I can start adding new Copilots as an option. We can invest and build Copilot Studio without investing in Copilot for Microsoft first-party Copilot. Correct. That question is something that actually we had here on the next slide. And using your question, Elizabeth, I'm going to mention this to all of you folks. You have the option of subscribing to 365, okay? To pay for that Copilot, like the one I have here, you can see. I can go to my Copilot and use my Copilot. This is given by a license, right? I go, I get a license for this user, and I start using and building. You can actually build your own Copilots without that one. Important. If you do so, like I was doing here, this specific scenario, okay, will only let you use custom Copilots, not default Copilot. Take that note, because Microsoft 365 Copilot is designed with the intention of you having all those pre-configured tools, right? Hey, give me a summary of the meeting. Oh, here you have a summary of the meeting. Redact an email about the upcoming holidays. Here you have an email. Create a presentation about Copilot Studio. Here you have a presentation. That's there by default. That's your Microsoft 365 out-of-the-box first-party Copilot subscription. Okay? Now, as I was saying, we can include complete new Copilots from scratch, like I was doing here. You can see my Q&A website. Now I have an external connection, a couple of questions. I have an action. I can publish all this and say, hey, let's publish this. You can see I can publish this. And once published in the next, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 minutes, this Copilot called website Q&A will be available for everyone, besides the default one they already have, right? So why is this so important? Because we can merge these two approaches, okay? My default one, given by the license, my custom one, created by the studio, can actually be merged into an extended version of the default Copilot. This is in public preview right now. It's actually been fully released. It has been in a full release rollout in the last few weeks, but the one you already have can actually be optimized, or let's say enhanced, not optimized, enhanced by Copilot Studio. Okay, the one I created here that is actually published now, I think, yes, it's published now. So it should be available in the next few hours, in the next few minutes, sorry. This one is completely custom, right? But I could grab the default Copilot and start adding new actions, start creating new workflows. That's the intention of actually understanding Copilot Studio, not only for newly from scratch created options, right? What can you build, for example, if I want a plugin? What if this Copilot I have here should also connect to the weather? I could actually do that. I could look through all the different options in the scenarios I have. You can see I have the weather here again. You can see it's not available yet on any solution, so I should actually have this as an option. I could include it here. I already did a few months ago, and then start consuming. The same happens if I have something more advanced, right? Think about, for example, Zendesk, or think about, I don't know, ServiceNow. This is something more or closer to your business as usual, right? What if I want my standard Copilot to be capable of creating a ticket directly here in my ServiceNow? We could do that. I mean, ServiceNow has some built-in connectors and stuff, but I can say, go here and say, hey, create a ticket in ServiceNow. This is going to fail right now, right? Because it's not connected. So again, you may have an idea that will require a full development from scratch. You can see here, I can help you on how to create one, or I could actually go and say, enable this one, the ServiceNow, connected to my Copilot for Microsoft 365, and then use the topic, ticket, ServiceNow, new report, support request, etc. So now you see we're one step ahead of what we could do with just creating from scratch. We can build over that something, we can build over something that already exists, like this one. Okay, so these are the two main approaches, folks. Please take note of that. This is one of the highlights of today's session. It's about you understanding, hey, can we actually enhance what we have and build from scratch? The answer will be yes. That's what we need to get as an actual outcome of today's session. Like, it's already there. I can put some new stuff. I can create one completely from scratch in here. So my Copilot, let me see if this is published now. It's already published. Let me see if I can see it. At some point in the next few minutes, I'll see as a plugin if I want to enable it as a plugin, and I'll be able to say, hey, give me the weather, right? So the intention there is to actually have that option of enhancing the default experience. So when we customize, folks, what we want is that approach of our users doing more with the same tools. Again, it's not better to have a new Copilot from scratch than having an enhanced Copilot. And it's not better to have an enhanced Copilot than the other. It's not like you should always do the same. No. Here, the key question and takeaway of this specific section of our agenda is, what do you have if you have something? What can you do with that you have right now? And what will you like to add in the future for the new options that you might want to include? Right? I've seen a lot of times customers building copilots from scratch without knowing that part of the things they do are actually a repeat over things they could actually have before using the 365. For example, basic navigation through your documents, basic data discovery in your SharePoint, your Teams, your OneDrive, your Outlook. So again, think about where you are, okay? And based on that, decide, should I enhance this option with what I have, or what I want is completely new? A common example, as I said, is third-party tools, right? If you need to create a ticket, if you need to monitor real-time KPIs from third-party tools, if you need to connect to external data sources like databases in Microsoft Azure, even third-party clouds like AWS, like Google, you can do that. You need to create a new threat analysis support in Splunk, you can do that. Stuff that goes outside of the default behavior. That will be your key driver to move forward on the first steps. Okay? Just a recommendation when we customize Copilot. Now, remember that the extensibility that we have in mind, or the extensibility we might want to achieve, is actually based on that approach of Copilot. Okay? There are lots of times when we think that we should create from scratch, and what you actually need is just to add a couple of tweaks here and there for Copilot to work. For example, if your company or your customer, whoever you support with Copilot, requires a front-end sales team, door-to-door, or a BTL, marketing and sales team, you can actually build for service. For example, instead of building from scratch a new Copilot, you can go and say, hey, why don't I give to my end users the option to read their KPIs and indicators from sales and prospects from the Copilot front end? Why don't let them go and say, how many sales I had yesterday? Like this. How many sales I had yesterday? Or what's my next customer appointment, right? Prospect appointment. Right now, it's not going to work. I mean, what I'm trying to show you is like that idea of the end user related to service using the same Copilot with a power up. I connect a plugin, and from the plugin, what I do is read from maybe a third-party calendar, or maybe from, as I said, from SAP or from Dynamics, or a third-party CRM that you might have, right? That's what I do with this basic option for service. Even better, if I already have some automations, why don't I connect my Copilot to Power Apps? I connect an external table, I select a file that will be used. For example, here you can see I'm adding an Excel file with a few tickets, and then the application will have the conversational plugin. There is my table, the account, the type of service, that's created in Power Apps. Take a look on the top right of the small video playing. It's actually Power Apps, right? But now, once created, I can actually use Copilot to read this information. You see on the right? Now I'm asking Copilot something about Power Apps. This is, for example, something you can use with previously created automation. A real example, in my environment here, I have an actual Power Automate connection that is not going to be visible because of a different user, but I have an interaction here that lets me read X, formerly known as Twitter, to pull, you can see it's a different user, but I have one that will let me read tweets that include any keywords for my company in different accounts. I could use Copilot and say, hey, do we have any news from Twitter or X customer interactions? It will connect to that Power Apps, it will execute the workflow and will show me, hey, these users are complaining, these users are saying something. We have 3-4 mentions about product ID 1, for example. You can do that. Power Apps is already there. The only thing you did is like, hey, I'll give you the option of using that workflow. The whole intention here, folks, is, again, not to learn like the technical tips and tricks of Copilot Studio yet. It was more about we understanding how does Copilot work? How does the studio help you? Okay, so to wrap up here, folks, let me show you a couple of extra things on the studio. Remember, we landed here. Take a note, as I said, copilotstudio.microsoft.com. From there, you have your environments, and you can see now I have the one I just created, right? It was modified like this. It's now published. It's available to use. You can create copilots directly from scratch, okay? If you want to have a new copilot created here, I can start with a completely new copilot, and step by step, start adding my options. Okay, what should I say? Check this out. I'm using language understanding AI, Gen AI, okay, to build my copilot. Will require ongoing maintenance. Is that right, Elizabeth? Depending on how you approach to the copilot you created. For example, if the sources, if the APIs, if the connectors, if the plugins are constantly transforming or modifying the source data, the answer is yes. Because maybe the SharePoint site you refer as initial source of knowledge for Copilot is no longer available, or it changed the name or permissions or something. That maintenance is required. Copilot Studio itself, once created and built into any other Copilot object or a new Copilot, won't require that unless the actions and connections endpoints are changing. Okay? That will be the key to identify if we actually need some ongoing maintenance. In a lot of scenarios, Elizabeth, we usually have like a low maintenance requirement because we know the structure of our tables in SAP, in Dynamics, the way we create tickets in service, now using the examples we have today, are not changing that often or that much. So the same connector and the same information for the ticket will be there. But if your source, if your information, if your connection keeps changing, then you'll need to change that. Okay? So it's just like, depending a lot on what Copilot is using, not the studio itself. It's not like studio is changing and you need to change the way you configure it. No. Okay? I hope that clarifies the maintenance requirement. So what should I say? So I want you to say welcome and hi. Okay. It's gonna record that as part of the things that we will use. Okay, custom Copilot. Brief overview on how else is the users. You'll help the users monitor the weather. That's what you're gonna do. So, I mean, what you're saying is actually a real-time AI interaction with a Copilot builder, right? Thanks you for sharing. Your Copilot will assist us monitoring the weather. Okay, any instructions how should assist? Casual. I want you to be casual, but I don't know, helpful. Like I want you to keep asking if there is something else you can do. Obviously, you'll have more details here, right? I mean, I'm just using the time we have for this small demo. Okay, I have this. Where should I find information? MSN weather here. Check that I actually gave the name of the website, right? Not the URL. This is automatically looking for a plugin or a connector. If it's not there, it will ask me if I can give more details. Okay? Any topics that shouldn't help? No politics, please. Here, let's keep it without politics. You can add any exclusion you want. I mean, there shouldn't be a reason or a way that why the weather will talk about politics, but just in case, right? Okay. All set. I'm done. Anything you would like to add? Check that it's not asking me for something more that it's specific, but I can go and say, can you also add suggestions about travels based on the best weather close to the user location? You can see now something quite specific. It's gonna try to interpret it what I'm saying. It will, yeah, I can do that. Okay, we're done. This is what I want my new brandly from scratch created Copilot to do. You can see on the right, it actually built the stuff. You can see a virtual assistant. I sometimes use AI answers to your question, something more knowledge by setting up a Gen AI. We're good. Once I have this basic configuration, I can hit create. You never saw me using any type of variables or code or anything, right? But I have now the stuff that I was using. You see, I don't have anything extra. I should start adding some stuff. I can publish and I can start testing. You see, it's giving me here simple topics, stuff. I can ask, how is the weather today in New York? You can see, well, it's actually waiting to build. This is another response time based on the availability. You saw it actually gave me the actions and it's just connecting, you saw? So it's because I did it too fast. Do we have a question there? I see a hands up, Jamie. If you want to use the chat or the Q&A, that's fine. I'm actually, let me open the Q&A just in case. Because I don't, here I have a Q&A. Here. So we have a question here. How Copilot gets the data from various organizations, which are distributed duplicated at various data sources? You'll have to define that, especially for the Copilot Studio, you'll have to define the sources you want, okay? And you have to add constraints to the way you like to prioritize. For example, if you have two data sources with the same, let's say, sales report, you'll have to prioritize like based on date, based on user, based on location, based on date of modification. So you can actually limit the sources in here. Since we have complete control over the creation, we will be able to do so. Okay, so I don't know if this thing is already built. Can I use this? You can see the activity now. Why did I paste BBC? I'll wait for it to complete. But well, this is what I wanted you to see, that when you start building a Copilot with Copilot Studio, folks, what you actually get, it's a pretty friendly tool to guide you through the whole process. Nothing we have here is actually requiring me to do that from scratch. You can see I have the activity.text being a variable created by default. Okay, so yeah, Elizabeth, once you, I don't have permissions here, but once you publish your Copilot, we have a question on how will I deploy this. You can go to your application, the default Copilot you have, for example, Teams. We'll see the Copilot here. And once you need the permissions, an administrative permission on the application or on the tenant, preferably if possible. And once you just close this one, let me wait for it to complete. There. Once it's published, you'll see it here. Okay. You can actually see I have a couple of those that I created, so I can enable this, and you can see it gives you a couple of options extra that you can use. So these were published and created by someone with permissions, and it's about reading the sales from my company. It's just a demo. But if you publish it and then someone adds it, like goes directly to the Microsoft Teams option and decides to include all the possible copilots, you'll see it here. If your user has permissions by default, whatever you publish here, okay, in your Copilot Studio will be available here on the plugins. Okay, so all those are actually now available. It might take a while. For example, mine should be here in the next few minutes, and I should be able to use the weather or the weather plus travel. Okay, but it's just a click in here once the permission was actually given. Okay, so that's how it works. And folks, any other questions you have? I mean, again, this is just an overview of what you can do, how you can actually start a pretty basic way of building a Copilot, how to expose it, how to publish it, how to actually consume it. But the actual idea of Copilot Studio, folks, is that you learn how to build new solutions for pre-existing first-party copilots or new solutions for completely brand new copilots for your company. Okay, so no, I'm gonna do that, Jimmy, in a second. So while I do that, remember we have a training promotion. There are more options we have here at Sunset about different types of specialist workshops. We have Copilot, we have prompting, we have advanced AI, we have a lot of others, but we have a promotion here for the advanced workshop of this class. It's few hours long. It's 4 hours long, up to 8 hours, depending on the version you decide to use, where you have actual demos, you have a full guided practice with your own subscription if you have one, and you have a special discount in here, as you can see. So I'm not sure, Carol, if you want to mention something about this promotion before I wrap up here the session. Let me know, please. I'm gonna get the link to the materials.
Well, yes, I'm gonna share here. Thank you, Arturo.
Thanks,
so thank you again for these sessions. We are with this promotion. These 3 workshops include demos. Please contact us. I will leave the links here in the chat. Give me 1 second, and I hope you all enjoy it. Please don't forget on sending us messages about your feedback and enrolling in these other courses. 1 second.
Thank you, Carol. So, folks, the link that I've just posted, no, sorry, let me just send it to everyone because I sent that privately here. It's there on the chat. You'll find my presentation plus a few other tools. So play around, you'll have some videos, some guided demos, you even have the option to redeem a free trial. So if you want to just give it a try, you can check the link I've shared, and Carol just shared a complete list of training and courses that we have, correct? So any other questions you have, folks? We have 2-3 more minutes here to discuss. Again, I would like to thank you all for your time, and I hope you enjoy the session. You'll find this on our official channels of Sunset. So you'll find the recording in the next, I think, a couple of days, right, Carol?
Yes.
Yeah, you'll find the recording, and whatever else you need, you can reach out to our contact information and our sales, whatever you need, we're here to help. Thank you again. Thank you for taking your time today to be here. I hope you got something new from this last 60 minutes, and hope to see you the next time with more Copilot and AI stuff from Microsoft. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you, Arturo.
If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.